In this video, we want to look at the difference between variable and data in research. These two concepts are often used interchangeably in research as if two of them are the same, but they are not the same. They are different from one another, and the difference is what we want to look at in this video. Let's look at the definition of the two concepts before we begin to bring out the difference between the two. By definition, a variable is an attribute or a characteristic of participant or situation for a given study that can change or take different values in that study. A variable must be able to vary or have different values. In other words, a variable must be able to change. If a variable is not changing, it's not a variable, it's a constant. And if a variable cannot take two or more values, it's not still a variable. Even though we may call it a variable, it's not a variable, strictly speaking. For example, a gender is a variable because it can take two values. We can give one for female and two for males, or vice versa. That is, two for female and one for males. Now, age is also a variable that has a large number of values because people in a research study, the participants in a research study can be of different ages. Then, if a concept can take only one value in a particular study, it is not a variable, it is a constant, just the way I've said before. Example, ethnic group is not a variable if all the participants in a study are from one ethnic group. Let's say Igbos, or Hausa, or Yoruba. Then, gender also is not a variable if all the participants in a study are female or male. In summary, when we are talking about variable, we are talking about the characteristics. The variables are the characteristics of the participant in our study, or the situation in our study, which we want to determine how they change, or external factors that are influencing them, making them to change in one way or the other. So variables are characteristics of the participant in a study or the situation in a particular study, which we want to determine how they change or what causes their changes. Now, a variable is usually defined in two ways: conceptual definition and operational definition. A conceptual definition of a variable refers to the general understanding of what a particular variable means, the general meaning a variable has for all people almost. Even though a variable may be, what we describe as a variable in a particular study could be given various definitions, but all are channeled towards trying to describe what people think it is. Then, after a variable has been conceptualized, that is, given conceptual definition, the next step for the researcher is to determine how the variable will be measured, and this is what we call operational definition. For an instance, let's assume that the variable we are talking about is we are trying to study the effect of the influence of gender on student academic achievement. For example, now we will define academic achievement as the extent to which the students have learned what they were taught in a particular subject. But the next thing is, how do we determine whether they have learned what they were taught in a particular subject? We need to measure it. And in measuring it, we need to administer a test or exam to them. Then, if we administer the test to them, if they perform very well, we can conclude that they have learned what they were taught. If they perform poor in that exam or test, we can conclude as well that they have not learned what their teacher taught them. So, when we are describing in a study how we measure a variable and how we arrive at concluding that this variable is this, that they have learned, in case of this academic achievement, they have learned what they were taught, meaning that the academic achievement is there. there is academic achievement in the student, we need to specify how to measure it and how to agree that there is high academic achievement or low academic achievement among the students. Then the next thing is operation. That's operational definition we are talking about. Operational definition helps to minimize the ambiguity of what something means in a research study, or what a variable means in a research study rather. Let us not be general. We are talking about variable now. This ambiguity is talking about the confusions about what a variable may mean. If we operationalize it, if we describe how we shall measure it, it will be very clear that this is what we have taken academic achievement to be. Now, an operational definition describes or defines a variable in terms of the procedure used to measure or manipulate it, which enables one to precisely communicate with others about what something is. It tells us how they are measured or how they are manipulated in case of a categorical variable, such as teaching method, that these people were assigned, this teaching method was assigned to this group and this one was assigned to, we shall, in a subsequent video, we shall explain how a situation in which the variables are manipulated. Then, an operational definition of academic achievement might be one's scores in a test or exam in which the range of score is 0, low achievement, to 100, high achievement. So, an instance is this. How we can determine what is academic achievement through proper measurement. Then, I think we have learned now what a variable is. The next thing is what is data. What are data? Because data is a plural of datum. To demonstrate changes in variables, it is necessary to make measurement of the variables being examined through assignment of numerals, that is numbers. For us to conclude that this variable is changing, we need to measure it by assigning numbers. For the fact they can take different numbers, for example now, in the case of gender, for the fact that we can give male and female, male 1 and female 2, means that one can be a male, one can be a female. There is change in the characteristic of the participant, but not one person. This particular person is a male, the other person is a female. Measurement is the process of systematically assigning values to represent attributes or characteristics of the participant. Example: persons, organisms, objects, event, or situation for a given study. The characteristics of these participants are what we call variables, and that is what we are trying to understand, whether they change or they do not change. Now, the measurements obtained for each variable are what we call data. In other words, the scores obtained from measurement of variable are what we describe as data. Let's see example. Let's look at this. This is a data set. This is a data set. Look at the variable we are talking about here. These are variables. These are names of the variable. This is a teaching method. This is gender. This is pre-test, post-test, and retention. These pre-test, post-test are all talking about achievement, the academic performance of students. And if you come to this data view, these are the scores we obtain from measuring them. For example, now in an instrument we use to measure these variables, we ask the participant to indicate whether they are male or female. Because they indicated they are females, we assign 2, and they are males, we assign 1 to them. This is the measurement, and we are giving them values, numbers. Then, for this, their performance, pre-test, post-test, retention, all these things are talking about achievement. Have well. how well they have learned what they were taught, an indication that they have achieved the objective for which a particular subject is meant to achieve, that they have learned what they are expected to learn. So it's by their performance in the test administered to them, and the scores we obtain from the tests we administered to them after they were marked are these things. So these scores are what we call data. Then, but the main concept we are studying to determine how they change, these variables here, gender, we are trying to know whether gender influence or teaching method influence their performance. In this case, post-test mainly. So whether it influences the way whether because students were taught with a particular method will make them to score higher than those who were taught with another method. Let's get back to our... So here now, data are scores obtained from measurement of variable. Data can also be defined as pieces of information obtained from observation, count, measurement, or responses. In the case of gender, it's from their responses that we got to know that they are male or female. We therefore assign 1 to male and 2 to female. Again, we said here that it is a term given to raw facts or figures collected together for the purpose of analysis, which alone are of little value. The scores, the data on their own, do not make any sense until after analyzing it, we interpret it and use it to say that this variable is changing or not changing. So that is what the difference between variable and data. I hope you made much sense out of this explanation.